So, ladies and gents, I am absolutely thrilled to be introducing you to Felicia Slattery. I first met Felicia, oh golly, had to have been over 12 years now ago at an internet marketing conference we were both at. And I'd seen her speak and was blown away by the value she brought to people and her not just the information and the quality of the information, but her generosity, that there was not, she didn't have what some speakers and other authors had done, which was kind of hold a little bit back because they wanted to make sure to get the back of the room sales. But she had a heart just to really give to the audience as much as she possibly could. And that really attracted me to her. And I've just kind of stayed in touch with her on and off through the years and been excited to see all the many things she's been doing as far as the books she's sold, herself as an educator, all those different incredible things. But rather than me just talk here, I would like to kick it off to Felicia and just ask, Felicia, you have had such an incredible career thus far, and you're far from over. And one thing we always say in the department here is that communication is one of those fields where you can change jobs or do different things, but you don't have to change careers. And I've seen that with you. Not only have you flipped and flopped to certain different things, but you've also had a lot of different things working at once. So could you give us just a little snapshot of how you got into communication to begin with and what your career has been like thus far?
Well, thanks for having me, first of all, Thom. I love that was so sweet, everything you said. Like, oh. All right. So when I was 7 years old, I got to read at my first Holy Communion Mass, and hundreds of people, possibly thousands, because it was a big, giant church in Philadelphia, were watching me and listening and paying attention. And I was like, Mommy, I want to do this again. That kind of started it, really. So, unlike other kids or people that get in front of a room full of people and they freeze or they get nervous, I just felt at home. That's just where I feel very comfortable. And so every job I've ever had, I went on and did plays and things like that. And then I discovered a speech team in college. And it was a very common activity in the Midwest and also in like Texas and Florida, like a few states. It's not coast to coast everywhere. It has a speech team. Like here in Knoxville, Tennessee, where we live now, there's no speech teams or anything like that. So my girls couldn't follow in Mama's footsteps. That's all right. But I went to camp, a summer camp, and I learned how to hone that speaking skill, public speaking, and debate and just competition skill. And then I got a scholarship to attend the #1 speech team university in the country. That was Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois. And I was blessed to be on that team and just see the high caliber of public speaking and communication and competition, and really learned from the best. We were national champions in 2 different events, or like big national conferences, the AFA and NFA, for like 25 years. We were #1 at both of them. I got to be part of that legacy. It was really cool. So that set me on this trajectory, and I decided I was going to be a communication major because I honestly had no idea what else I would do. And so I also ended up majoring in French by default because I studied abroad. And so that's totally not been any useless, except now I can help my kids with their French homework because they're in high school. So that's fun. But anyway, so after college, pretty much every job I ever had involved me standing in front of a room full of people in one way, shape, or form, whether I was selling something or teaching something. I went on and I got my first master's degree. And that was a non-traditional kind of a program, and that was in adult education and training. Okay. And when I finished with that, my whole life, I'd always wanted to be a teacher. Like that was my favorite game when I was a little kid. And can we play school? Only if I could be the teacher. Okay. So I was, whatever, Miss Bossy Pants apparently. And so I loved being in front of the room. It was so fun. And so when I finished this master's degree, I was working for a university at the time in their enrollment department. And enrollment, as you know, is basically college speak for sales. So that's where I was. I was standing in front of groups of people and I was doing my little pitches and things. And so I and I got the free tuition. When you work for a college, typically you get free tuition. So that was fun. And so that's how I got my first master's degree. And I called the school and I said, can I teach your public speaking communication classes? And they said, sure, you can teach them in the adult education program because that's where my master's was. Mm-hmm. So I got to teach that. And I was like, oh, I love this. And so I called, at the time I was living in Chicago, I called every college and university in the Chicago area. I was like, can I teach for you guys this class? And they said, well, yeah, do you have a master's in communication or fine arts or anything related to speech? I was like, no, I have this other one. They were like, sorry. Boo. So then I went on and got a second master's degree because I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And so that's when I went to the University of Illinois at Chicago, and I got my second master's, and that was in communication. And while I was working on and finished that, that's when I was able to then start teaching communication and public speaking. And I did that for more than a decade as an adjunct instructor. And I absolutely loved it. I had so much fun. But then I had babies, and I wanted to be home with my babies. So I had way longer story, but this is already too long of an answer. Your one question. But when my younger daughter was born, we both almost died. And that's when I was very fully aware of the shortness of life and the gifts that I was given to raise these two babies. And so mama with 2 master's degrees can't just sit home and do nothing. So, even though changing diapers is life-changing and amazing. I mean, you have a bunch of kids, So all right. So I love being with my kids, and also let me figure out what else I could do. And that's when I started using the internet. That was back in 2006. And somebody said to me, why don't you be teaching? I thought I was a life coach. Insert laugh track here. I'm so not a coachy person. I'm much more of a do things this way because this is the right way person. And that's the opposite of a coach. But so I'm more consultant. But anyway, so about a year into it, somebody said, why aren't you a speech consultant? And I was like, everybody had speech in high school or college, didn't they? They don't need that. And she was like, maybe you wanted to look around and think about that. And that was the advent of me teaching public speaking online. And I just started interacting with people using social media the way it looked at the time, which is a whole different animal than it is today. But interacting with folks and just answering people's questions. Like you said, how we met, I would answer questions in depth on social media, like, hey, I have a talk I got to do for my business tomorrow, but I don't even know what to say. I don't know how to start, or I don't know how to organize it, or I tried that before and it doesn't work. And I'm like, well, you're doing it wrong. So, and I would tell them, I would just write these long answers and just say what I knew. And people were like, wow, can you teach me how to do that? And then I developed online training and programs and got to do that from the time my daughters were 1 and 3 until I'm still doing it now. And my oldest is now at college. She's 18. And my younger one is about to turn 16 in a couple months. So.
Wow. Very cool. Well, so I've known that some of what you've done has been actually, like you said, consulting with individuals, whether they're business people, whether they're other marketers, people like that how to present themselves better, how to present from the stage, how to package their personal brand to an extent. Walk us through that, and especially if you can contextualize for students and how important it is for students to have excellent communication skills and the ability to even personally brand themselves when they're not even completely sure what that brand is yet.
Yeah. So I think of branding. All right. So first of all, with a master in communication, as you know, probably, I pretty much think of everything as communication. It all is, right? So branding is essentially communication about yourself to the world. That's what personal branding is. And so, there's plenty of room to continue to grow, build, and discover yourself. But at the moment, you are somebody right now. And so who are you right now? And to me, the concept of personal branding is putting your best foot forward into the world so that people see, especially potential employers or potential graduate schools, right, where people are going to eventually be going once they graduate from college. So one of those two is your path, right? A potential employer, a potential grad school. That's pretty much your choices. So what story about who you are do you want to tell about yourself? What do you want them to know about you? Do you want to be known as the kind of person who is posting pictures on Instagram of the big parties that probably not your crowd, but there are people that do that, right? Or do you want to be known as the person who is very active in a particular organization or student government, or you have a hobby that you absolutely are passionate about and you love? Before, did they call you Dr. Scott? Thom?
No, I'm Professor Thom.
Before Thom and I started recording, we were talking about one of our shared passions being plant-based eating and cooking and things like that. And, so I share a lot about that topic on social media and in the world. And that's really where a lot of personal branding happens, honestly, is it happens on social media. And you pick your platform wherever you want to be, or multiple platforms is fine. And you decide, what am I going to share with the world, rather than just random, I took a picture of a sunset, which may be fine. Sunsets are beautiful. But just purposely think about how you're going to communicate who you are as a person. So if you love sunsets or sunrises, maybe you're an early riser, and maybe being up to watch the sunrise is your thing, and you want to welcome people to a day that tells the world something about who you are as a person, right? What does it tell them? Well, it tells them, number one, that you appreciate God's beauty in the world. Number two, it tells them that you're somebody who's up in the morning, right? Early bird gets the worm, all that kind of thing. And so that is something that communicates about you without you saying, oh, I love to get up early and work early and get everything done early. Like, you don't have, you're just taking pictures of your morning sunrise. Great. Depending on the words that you associate with that image, that will share some more about who you are. And over a period of time, what that body of work, really, that body of individual messages does is it builds your brand over time. And so you become a kind of person that people decide, are you somebody that they want to know more about, or are you somebody that they prefer to mute? And they get to choose that, as you get to choose that as well. So think about purposeful communication, not just random, oh, I'm going to share this tweet, or I'm going to put this, this up on my story on Snapchat or whatever. Like, really think about, does this make sense for how I want the people in the world to see me? Does that help?
Absolutely. So how do they start that process of figuring out what they want to show? Because most people, or most of the students that I've dealt with, they, like I said, they don't necessarily know what they want to do. They do know about, lots of different hobbies and things they like, but it's almost too broad. And so how do they pick those things that this kind of communicates what you and I would consider their brand essence, what they're like, what are these 3, 4, 5 things that kind of make up who they are, that people can wrap their head around?
See, you and I think the same, because we know the same stuff. I was going to say, pick 5 topics.
There you go.
Sit down, make a list, right? Say a prayer. We can say that on this podcast. Yeah,
absolutely.
Awesome. So sometimes I'm in places where they're more secular and they go, say a prayer. What are you talking about? Whatever. So say a prayer, ask God for a little guidance, be quiet, sit there with a pen. What's important to me in my life? Write that down. Just write down all the things that you're interested in, things that you are passionate about, things that you love. It could be your family. It could be friends. It could be, cooking or a certain eating style. It could be a certain hobby that you're really fascinated about or interested in. It could be your favorite class or subject or your major. Anything that you're interested in, just write all these things down. And if you're not sure, I've spent a lot of time with business people that are in a similar stand. They're like, I don't know what my niche would be. Like, okay, well, you kind of do. You just don't know you do. So, and it's the same answer. Like you do, you just don't know that you know. I call it do a social media audit of yourself. Mm-hmm. Look back over your last 20 to 50 posts. And some people like 50, because that's what you're putting out in the world, right? Look back over your last 20 to 50 posts and just after you write your list, so write your list of the things that you in your head you're thinking about. These are the things that, speak to my heart, that I really feel like I'm passionate about. And that list could be 10, 15, 20 things, whatever it is, right? Just write all the things down. Then look back over your last 20 to 50 posts on your most used social platform. So wherever that happens to be, right? And then compare those. So for every post that, let's just say, since we talked about food and family, for every post that talks about family, put a little tick next to family. Talks about food, put a tick next to food. Sunsets or sunrises, whatever, tick next to that. You will soon see a pattern emerge that shows you these are the 5 things that you are currently most interested in and most communicative about. If you're happy with that, continue as on. If you look at that and go, I wrote a lot of things about an election that I really don't care all that necessarily much about, but I sounded pretty passionate about that, but it didn't show up on my list of things that in my heart of hearts I care about. Well, maybe you should stop writing about that stuff then. Just saying. But maybe you're thinking someday I'm going to be going to poli-sci. Maybe I'm going to go become an attorney because I want to run for elected office. Fantastic. Maybe you should be talking about that more then, right? So it really depends on who you are and what your path is in life. And you don't know what your path is yet in life. So you just get to say, all right, well, this is who I am right now. And here's something that's very important to remember. Who you are right now is not who you will be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, or 20 or more years. You're not going to be the same person. And that's okay. You can change whenever you're ready to change. You're not setting anything in stone at all. You're just saying, in this moment, in this place that I am occupying in the world right now, and occupying in the space of the people's minds who are reading and looking and learning about me and looking at my resume and looking at whatever body of work that you've created and the classes that you've taken, because that's another thing that will build your personal brand. Yes, there's the required, general education requirements and the classes required for your major, but then there's these other classes you could take. What did you all of that tells a whole giant story of who you are and what you're about. And you get to choose what that is. So I love that. I love that social exercise. I think that is a really powerful exercise, and it is very eye-opening for some people.
It is. And it was in doing something like that, actually, I think it was like 7 years ago or so, that I decided to stop posting anything related to politics whatsoever. And politics is something I still read about, I still follow. Sure. I'm still interested in issues, but I made the decision that when it came to what I was putting out in the world, that I didn't want anyone to ever judge my God based on my policies. And so for me, it became part of not only my own personal brand identity, and as far as that goes, but also it changed the dynamic of the user experience. I'll put it that way, with people and me, and how I was serving them or not serving them. So that's awesome. Thank you. That in itself was worth the price of admission right here, because that was a fantastic exercise that I can see helped a lot of students that way. Now, switching gears a little bit, we've got some students I know who they're actually in the communication department because they're looking to hone their craft at writing, because they are aspiring authors themselves. Talk to us a little bit about how on earth did you get into publishing and publishing and getting books published, becoming bestsellers, and like what opened the door to that?
Speaking and writing go together hand in hand, especially when you're in business and as an entrepreneur. So if you are going to build one area, the other area, really, they go together. If you've written books and you put books out into the world, I guarantee you people are going to ask you to speak. They just are. So be ready. And if you start speaking, I guarantee you they're going to go, so where's your book? What's the title of your book? When's your book coming out? That's just the way our world works. So I put myself out there as a speaker, and people started asking, are you going to write a book? And when are you going to write a book? And so I had always dreamed of writing a book. And what I did, Thom, you'll appreciate this. It'll probably not necessarily register with a lot of your students, but I had a membership program at the time. It was a fixed term membership, Jimmy D. Brown style, you know what I'm talking about. Yep. And it was a 12-week membership. And over that course of 12 weeks, I was like, yeah, it was 3 months, 12 weeks. Yes. Over that course, every week, my students in my membership program, my customers, would get a written document every single week related to effectively communicating for their business.
So you
well, guess what?
To your members.
12 weeks, 12 chapters, done. So I took those 12 modules, and I looked at it and I thought, all right, well, if I was putting this in a book, what is missing? So there was a little bit, kind of here or there if I was doing a book. And I added an intro and a conclusion, done and done. And so then I hired someone to help me do the cover and the interior layout and that kind of stuff. And then we self-launched that first book. So to this day, you could never buy the book on Amazon because that was never the intention. The intention was I wanted these books to be able to sell at the back of the room when I spoke, and that was all. Sure. So I did. But then people were like, ooh, and I had publishers approach me. Would you write a book for us? Not giant publishers, but publishers. Could you write 21 Ways to Make Money Speaking for our 21 Ways series? I would be happy to do that. So I wrote 21 Ways to Make Money Speaking. That's a pretty easy book to write. Number 1, this way. Number 2, that way. Number 3, that way. And then I was sitting in an audience one day, and a New York Times bestselling author, I was sitting in the audience because I was the MC. So I introduced him and then I sat down. But it was Michael Port, and he wrote a book. He's written several New York Times bestsellers. And his book was Book Solid.
Yeah, it was Book Solid.
Book Yourself Solid. That's what it was. Book Yourself Solid. And in that book, and then in his talk related to that book, he talked about the elevator speech and how it was a horrible thing. And at that point, I'd been in business for a few years, and people were saying, and I've been teaching public speaking, and they're like, when are you going to teach people to do an elevator speech? And I was like, never. I am over my dead body. I'm not going to do this. And let me tell you why, because they're horrible. So when he was on stage saying they're horrible, I was like, yes. And I had like this hallelujah angels moment, this chorus, and kind of like when I was 7. And I said, this is the title of my next book, is Kill the Elevator Speech. So that next week, I had another fellow author friend. Their publishing company reached out to me and they said, hey, this author friend of yours is publishing a book, and he gave us your name as somebody who might give an endorsement. And I was like, sure, fine. By the way, I have a book idea. And they said, okay, well, let's get on the phone. I got on the phone with the editor, the whole, like the guy who ran the whole company, and which I found out later was super unusual. He loved the idea, and he said, yeah, we'll do. I would love to publish that book. I think it would be amazing. They gave me an advance, which was super fun because I told them it was always my dream to get an advance. It was not a big advance at all, but it was 5 times more than I asked for, which was super exciting, and still not a lot. Anyway, and so how I did it was I recognized a need in the marketplace, and then I decided that I was doing it. Mm-hmm. That's it. And I wanted it, and I found a way to make it happen. That's pretty much been my entire career. I wanted to get something done. I figured out how to do it, or I found the right people to help me do it, and then I just asked them. Yep. Because the worst thing that can happen is they can go, no, okay. Well, I mean, I guess maybe the worst thing that can happen is they laugh at you and they tell you it's a terrible idea, and then you have to just do it to prove them wrong. Just saying.
So the teacher and entrepreneur in us, I think, drives us to the how-to publishing world ourselves. Would you have any advice for students who may be looking more at the fictional writing marketplace and how they would go about? Should they try and get a literary agent? Is it better to self-publish? Those types of things.
So, but the book publishing world is like the rest of capitalist America, right? Book publishers want to make money. Bottom line, they can't be in business if they're not making money. So it doesn't matter what genre you want to write in, right? If you want to write in a fiction genre, pick one. It doesn't matter, sci-fi or romance or thrillers or whatever, right? It doesn't matter, drama, whatever it is you want to do. That you need to start building what we call your platform. So what we talked about earlier with building your online presence and your persona and your online brand, that needs to start now. If you're thinking that's where you want to go, start right now building that out. So what does that look like? That looks like following and friending and sharing or resharing or retweeting or whatever the language is on your platform, things from other people in that same genre, in that same niche. It looks like having them follow and friend you because you have followed and friended them and shared enough of their stuff. And so building this network of people who are interested in the same kind of thing you are, so that when you go to a literary agent who will ultimately go to a publisher, and you can bypass a literary agent if you want. There's ways to do both. You have either way. You've got to get somebody to say yes to pitching your book, but you come with what we call in the author world a platform. And the bigger your platform, the easier it is for your book to be able to be sold. The concept of the book. Typically, you do not write. You don't send off a whole manuscript and say, "Here, read the whole manuscript." You do a book proposal, and in a book proposal is very boring. It's like super businessy. But it is like you have to do a market analysis. What are the other books that are out there like your book? You have to do an audience analysis. Who are going to be the people that are reading this book? Who are you writing the book for? Everybody who will read it. No, that's not an answer. Like who specifically? Like are you targeting stay-at-home moms? Are you targeting college professors? Are you who are you targeting? Right? Who are the people that you think are going to read this book? And so that needs to be in there. And then how many, millions of those people, ideally there's millions of them in the market. It's easier to get sold. And then that's when you write, what is the proposed title of your book and what is the proposed table of contents of your book. And then you write, why is your book different? And I've had one publisher who I think is a mutual friend of ours. He told me he's looking for three things. He's looking for the right content written by the right author at the right time. That's what he's looking for. And when he comes across that trifecta, he says yes. So all of the things that I've been talking about, building your platform and making sure you're very clear and communicating your what's the value proposition of the book. And there's a value proposition of a nonfiction book, by the way. There is. We don't have time to get into it, but look it up. It just means like, what do the people get out of it when they're reading it? Do they really feel like they're full, if it's a romance novel, are they really feeling like they're fully escaped and, able to just read it on a beach and relax or, whatever, right? So, anyway, you need to have all of those pieces and just recognize that book writing, even though it sounds romantic and exciting and, we're going to launch, it's very, very much a business. And when you treat it as such, you will be much more successful than if you treat it as this romantic notion of, I'm going to write a book now. And like, it's work. You have to write the book even when you don't feel like writing the book because the book has to get done. So, and then you got to launch the book because people have to know about it. So that's a whole nother world. I mean, I launch books for my clients and there's a process involved. It's not difficult, but there's a lot you got to know and you got to dot a lot of I's and cross a lot of T's and make sure all that's done. So there's a lot involved. And I highly encourage anyone who's interested in writing a book, please do write that book, get it out there into the world because God's given you that idea for a reason. And so definitely do it and follow that path. And know that there are lots of people who have done it before you, and there are lots of people who have lots of great free information available on the internet, if only you put in the right search terms to find it. Because there's, just like Thom said, I'm not the only person in the world who freely gives and shares information. I do it because ultimately I'm going to get a $25,000 client that's willing to pay me that kind of money to help them do their thing. And everybody else who read all that stuff, God bless them. I hope they use it and make $1 million. So it's a win-win all the way around.
Awesome. So what if I've got students who have actually written books already, but they have no platform? Can they use an existing book that they've written in a way to build their platform?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So many ways. It's like 21 ways to make money with a book. I know that. All right. So you could take parts of your book and start dripping it in order pick a platform and then stick with that one platform, right? Instagram. I would say probably your best bet is either Instagram or Twitter for that. Okay. people follow stories on Snapchat. So if you want to do it there, that would be fine too. But either Instagram or Twitter is probably more well suited for that situation. So start sharing pieces of your book that way. You could create a blog, which is, you can do a blog for free online. You don't have to pay money. There's ways that you can do free blogs. And so like put parts of your story for free. And then when you tweet or you put a story on Instagram, link it to the blog so that then people can read the rest. Right. And that's how you start to build your platform is through that way. If you feel comfortable on video, on camera, open up your camera and read some of your story. People love that. Or talk about, it doesn't matter what kind of book it is. If it's nonfiction, talk about the characters, talk about the storyline, talk about your research. People love that behind the scenes stuff, and they'll start to follow you. They'll start to be interested. People are interested. I mean, it doesn't even matter what the topic is. My 18-year-old who's at college right now, she is so stoked because she just got into this history of the British Isles in archaeology class.
Wow.
Right? Like, great, super nichey. But if she sees anybody writing about that or talking about it, they'll be like, oh, she gets all like, she nerds out about it. Like, God bless her. I love it. So she's got a full ride. I don't care. Whatever you want to do, baby. You just keep getting that full ride. Just keep studying hard. So, like, there are people that are interested in whatever it is you're interested in. The teeniest, tiniest, you interested in military history of Virginia? There's lots of people who are interested in that thing. And they may be from around the world. You don't know where they're from, but they're on the internet. They are. So find the right hashtags and start sharing stuff. Whether it's fiction, nonfiction. If it's nonfiction, then start talking about little things related to whatever it is that your book is about. Are there mistakes that people make with whatever it is that you write about? Share a mistake a day, Monday through Friday. This week, we're going to do the 5 biggest mistakes, one each day, Monday through Friday, right? Whatever. Just think about ways that you can engage people who are interested in what you have to talk about or write about. And I keep going back to social media because it is such a powerful tool and is absolutely free for us to use. And if you don't get caught up in all of the craziness that can be social media and you use it for your own benefit, it is a very powerful set of tools, because it's not just one, it's a bunch of them, right? And you get to pick where you want to be and where you believe that your audience is mostly, and just really, really just be open about sharing it. And you'll find that, and by the way, you can publish on Kindle for sort of for free, close to it. You got to get your book cover designed. If you're not a designer, don't try to do it yourself. You got to get the interior laid out. If you don't know what that looks like, maybe pay somebody some money. But there's a site called Fiverr, which, lots of people are familiar with, and you can get things for very inexpensive. I would recommend buying the ISBN from KDP so that you can publish your book. But interestingly, people will buy your book, or you could also give it away for free once it's on KDP as a Kindle. You could give it away for like the first weekend for free, or a week or a month or whatever. And then people that are interested in it, especially after you've done all this stuff, they'll buy it. They'll buy it for their friends, or they'll recommend it to their friends, or whatever. And some people will buy the book after they've read it, when they've got it for free, just because they like the book and they're like, I would like to support this author, so I will buy the 99-cent book or whatever. So all kinds of ways.
Very cool. So switching gears once again, you have worked with primarily a lot of the secular marketplace by and large. Mm-hmm. How has your faith informed how you do what you do, or the way you've done what you've done? How have you found that balance walking out in life? Because we're in marketing, so it sometimes, and with some that we've come in contact with, there's been a lack of scruples in some situations. It's one of those feels that I talk to my students all the time, that when you've got the power to persuade, you've also got the power to manipulate. So how have you managed to keep that balance and keep yourself in check, I guess, so to speak?
Well, you know, the Bible verse, they'll know we're Christians by our love, by how we are in the world, right? So that's how I have lived my life. I like, depending on the audiences that I speak to. So one of my books, actually I have it here because it's my own personal journal, is A Daily Business Meeting with God. And this is my journal. Like this is mine, but I did it because it was a God said, I want you to do this journal. And I was like, no, I'm doing another book right now. And God was like, do this book. And it was done in 7 days from idea to on Kindle. So when God gives you an idea, you make sure there's a way to get it done. So the way I just told that little tiny short story, I tell stories like that all the time. Again, depending on the audience. So if I know that I'm in front of an audience of believers, I'll let her rip. It's great. But if I'm with an audience of secular people, I'll use words like I'm blessed beyond measure. And I just am who I am, right? I mean, I live my life according to biblical principles. And so, and people know that. People know that I'm not going to lie. People know that I'm not on the internet cussing. People know, and I do not abide for that either. I like somebody cussed on one of my posts not like a week or two ago, and I wish it was funny. Like, it doesn't shock me when I hear people talk about that because I know that's the way that's a lot of the world. But when like I've been so public about that's something that I don't abide by. When I see someone write a cuss word on one of my things, I'm like, what just happened? Like, I can't hit that block button, delete fast enough. So like, people will get to know you by who you are and how you are in the world. And the world is a small place. As big as it is, with as many billions of people as there are in the world, once you start to walk down a path in a particular corner of this beautiful world that God created, you'll find that it is not that giant. And people will talk and they will say good things about you or not so good things about you. And you get to decide what they're going to say by how you are, by how you act in the world. And so that's just really, I am always my same self. I am like this in front of my husband and my kids. I am like this in front, I'm on a stage. It doesn't matter. I'm always the same because honestly, it's exhausting to try to be anything but who I am. Look, I got to remember who that was. Like, what? So I'm just always who I am. And it just is easier. It's easier when you follow biblical principles because you've got the roadmap.
Yeah. And it sounds to me like it's not just that you are able to just be who you are, but because of that, and because you're so unabashedly yourself, and you've got congruence between the personal brand that you're projecting and who you actually are. You also, I think, tend to attract people you work with who aren't going to ever ask you to do anything that's unethical because they knew up front that wasn't the gig they were getting with you.
Right. Yes, exactly.
That helps. I know for myself, and I've shared this with students, I wasn't always that way. So in my early career, I had to deal with ethical issues because they couldn't tell necessarily that I wasn't against, because I kind of played the fence both sides a little at a time. So I can attest that is incredible. And also the comment about small world, that is huge. And I hope that everybody really understands the power of that leverage, because it will go both ways. It can either destroy your career or keep you blacklisted from working with certain people, or it can help you like be able to cultivate relationships, even like you and I have over all these years, where it's not like we're, call each other every week or something, but we always know we can check in with each other. We always know we could go to each other for anything that's needed, and that we always remember the other one when it comes to certain possible situations or opportunities that we might hear come up, because we've had experience with one another and we both trust one another. And I think that type of thing is huge. So thank you so much for that. So we're going to wrap up in a moment, but I always like to ask one final question, and that is, Felicia, if you were to start all over again in your professional career, what's one thing you wish you'd known then that you know now?
That's a really good question. that no matter what you plan and how you plan for it, your plans are not God's plans. And it's always going to turn out in a whole different way than you imagined. And that's okay. And just know that it's going to be okay. And know that if you are a person who walks by faith, that while things may seem challenging, difficult, confusing, or frustrating in a moment, know that God is ordering your steps so that everything that you'll get to a point at some point in your life where you look back and you go, all those things led to this moment right now. And if I didn't get through all of that, I couldn't be here. So just know that's it's okay, whatever it is you're walking through, because there's going to be a way for God to use that in your life. And I just got chills, so I know that's right.
That is absolutely powerful, and you and I both can attest to the truth of that. So that's awesome. Felicia, thank you. We appreciate you so much, and once again, your willingness to share, like, not only your story, but also like some really awesome, really cool tips today that if they take and apply that both in the area of personal branding, in the area of being an author, any of those things, I mean, pick one. In fact, just go to the final statement and that alone is worth it. So thank you so much. I appreciate you, and look forward to seeing new things come out of you. The cookbook coming up, I'll make sure that my students know about that when it comes out, but thank you very much.
Thanks, Thom.